Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually I kick things off by talking about the mountain of research we've just climbed.
Right, the usual stack of journals and
Oh,
articles.
exactly. 3 conflicting op-eds, a dense biography, the routine. We parse all that data just to find the narrative. But today feels, different.
It is different,
Yeah.
very different. The source material today isn't a stack at all. It's, what, a single paragraph from a piece called The Pause.
Which, I have to be honest, makes me a little nervous. When we have 50 pages of notes, I know where the guardrails are. But this is so minimal. It's less about information and more about, I don't know, a provocation.
That's a great word for it. It's a philosophical provocation. We aren't here today to optimize your workflow or explain the geopolitical landscape.
No.
The whole mission today is to take this one piece of text, which calls itself Quiet Questions That Linger, and to actually let them linger. Let them do their work on us.
Quiet questions. That's the phrase that just jumped out at me. In today's attention economy, nothing is quiet. Everything's a headline in all caps, screaming for a click. So the whole premise here is to explore this idea of a thought to sit with.
And sitting with something, it sounds passive, but it's really an active process.
Yeah.
It means you have to resist that impulse to just categorize it and file it away. You have to just look at it, turn it over, and see what it reflects back.
Okay, so let's get right into that first reflection. The text opens with a conditional statement that, frankly, I struggled with at first. It just says, if time only exists because we measure it.
It's a heavy opener.
It is. And my first instinct is to push back on that. If time only exists because we measure it, I mean, physics would disagree, right? Entropy happens whether I'm looking at a clock or not.
Sure.
My coffee gets cold. Cells divide. The universe expands. Is the text really trying to say that time isn't real, or is this just, like, poetic license?
I think it's making a more subtle point. It's not denying entropy, of course not. The physical universe obviously undergoes change.
Okay.
But the text is drawing a line between change, which is a natural process, and time, which is a human construct. Think about the difference between, say, the rhythm of a day and the rigidity of a schedule.
So like biological time versus mechanical time.
Exactly. For most of human history, we lived in what you could call event time. You milk the cows when their udders are full. You harvest when the wheat is gold.
You sleep when it gets dark.
Right. You are living in accordance with change. But time, as we experience it now, the grid, the seconds, the hours, that is a human invention.
We built the container.
We did. And you can actually pinpoint when that container started to tighten. It goes way back to the Benedictine monks in the Middle Ages.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they needed to pray at very specific intervals, matins, lauds, vespers. They basically invented the mechanical clock, not for productivity, but for devotion.
That is deeply ironic. The tool that now drives our whole hyper-capitalist hustle culture began as a way to make sure we were praying enough.
It's the ultimate irony, isn't it? But the real shift, the moment time became the kind of oppressor we know today, that was the railroads.
The 19th century.
Right. Before trains, noon in Bristol was 10 minutes later than noon in London because it was just based on the sun. And that worked perfectly fine when you were traveling by horse.
Because who cares about 10 minutes on a 3-day journey?
Exactly. But if you're trying to run a train schedule and you have two locomotives hurtling toward each other on a single track, about noon gets people killed.
Right. You need precision.
So we standardized time. We forced the entire world onto a grid. We severed the connection between the sun and the clock. That's what the source means. We created this abstract scaffolding and then decided to live inside it.
It's like the map becoming the territory. We look at our watch to see if we're hungry instead of just listening to our stomachs.
Precisely. We've outsourced our own intuition to the measurement. It reminds me of the old Greek concepts, chronos and kairos.
Ah, yeah, from Philosophy 101.
A bit worn out, I know, but useful here. You have chronos, that's sequential quantitative time, ticking clock. And then you have kairos, the qualitative moment, the right time, the opportune moment.
And when we're measuring, we're stuck in chronos.
Always. And chronos is where all the anxiety lives.
Because it's a limited resource?
Yes. If you're measuring, you're counting down, you're always aware of scarcity. I only have 5 minutes left. That creates this low-level fight-or-flight response that just never really turns off.
Which leads perfectly into the second part of the text. So we've set up that measuring creates this artificial pressure cooker. The source then asks, what happens when we stop?
The stop.
Yeah. But what does stopping actually look like, practically? Because if I just stop moving, the world keeps spinning. My boss still expects that report. Is this just about taking a nap, or is it something deeper?
It's not just about physical stillness, though that can help. It's about stopping the measurement. It's about entering a state where you aren't constantly tracking your position on that grid.
Which is terrifying for most of us.
Why do you think that is?
Well, just look at the waiting room phenomenon. If you're in a doctor's office for 3 minutes, what happens? Out comes the phone. We cannot tolerate the stop.
Right.
If we aren't processing input or checking the time, we feel, I don't know, exposed, unguarded.
You've hit on something really crucial. There's actually neuroscience behind this. When you are focused on task measuring, doing, executing, you're using the task-positive network in your brain.
Okay.
But when you stop, when you put down the phone and just sit there, your brain switches over to the default mode network, the DMN.
The DMN, that's where daydreaming comes from, right?
It is, but it's also where your self-referential processing happens. It's where you think about you, your past, your future, your regrets, your anxieties.
So the stop isn't necessarily peaceful.
Not at first. It's often a confrontation with your own internal noise. That's why we grab the phone. We are measuring time and consuming content to literally drown out the DMN.
So stopping isn't passive at all. It's actually a pretty courageous act of entering your own headspace.
The philosopher Blaise Pascal said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." That was in the 1600s. It's infinitely more true now.
Yeah, now that we carry the entire internet in our pockets to avoid that quiet room.
Exactly.
The source calls these quiet questions, but if what you're saying is true, then the silence is actually really loud at first. When we stop measuring the external world, the internal volume knob just shoots up.
It does. But that's the gateway. You have to move through that initial layer of boredom and anxiety to get to the real pause. If you can stay in that room, metaphorically, without checking the clock, something shifts.
Which brings us to the climax of this text. And this, I have to say, is where the philosophy starts to feel almost like a ghost story. The text asks, does time disappear, or do we?
It's a fork in the road, a real choice.
Okay, let's take that first path. Does time disappear? I think we've all felt this, right? When you get lost in a project or a great conversation or just listening to music.
The flow state.
Exactly.
Yeah, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow. He found that when the challenge of what you're doing perfectly meets your skill level, the part of your brain that monitors self-consciousness and time, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, it essentially goes offline.
So from your own perspective, time does disappear.
It collapses.
Yeah.
You look up and 4 hours have passed in what felt like 20 minutes. In that state, you're totally free from the tyranny of Chronos. You're just in the experience.
And that's the benevolent outcome. That's what happens when you stop measuring. You merge with the action itself.
That's path A.
Okay, I'll buy that. That's the good outcome. But then there's the other side of the or, the part that makes me uncomfortable. Or do we disappear?
This is the existential risk.
Break this down for me, because obviously I don't physically vanish from the park bench I'm sitting on. What part of me is disappearing?
To answer that, you have to ask a different question. Who are you?
I'm the host of this show. I'm a citizen. I'm a collection of my memories, my history, my plans for the future.
History and plans. Past and future. Your identity is built almost entirely on a twin line. Psychologists call it our narrative identity. You are the main character in a story that stretches from birth to death.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if you stop measuring time, if you truly, fully inhabit the now, that timeline dissolves. The past is just a memory trace. The future is just a prediction. Neither of them actually exists in the present moment.
Right.
So if you remove the timeline that your story is built on, does the character of you start to fade?
That sounds a lot like what people call ego death.
It's very close to it. In our culture, we are so identified with our productivity. I am what I do, I am busy, therefore I am important. We use the measurement of time to validate our own existence.
If my calendar is full, I must be a real person.
I am scheduled, therefore I am. Precisely. So when you stop, when you take away the schedule, the deadline, the next thing, you're stripped of that validation.
You're just there.
You're left with just being.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that feels like dying. It feels like disappearing because they genuinely don't know who they are without the hustle.
It's the Sunday scaries.
Explain that.
You know, that feeling on a Sunday afternoon, the work week is over, the chores are done, but Monday hasn't started yet. There's this gap, this void, and people get genuinely anxious or depressed.
That's a perfect example.
It's because they've stopped measuring for a second, and they feel that That disappearance.
That anxiety is the ego realizing it has nothing to hold on to. The source is suggesting that we need to lean into that.
Yeah.
We need to let that version of ourselves, the scheduled self, disappear, at least for a little while.
But that requires an enormous amount of trust. Trust that something else is going to be there on the other side.
It does. It requires trusting that you are more than your utility, that you're more than your output. If you disappear as a worker or a time manager, you might just reappear as simply consciousness, presence.
That reframes the pause completely. It's not a relaxation technique. It's an identity crisis on purpose.
An identity crisis on purpose.
Yeah.
I like that. I might steal that. But yes, meaningful growth almost always requires a small crisis. You have to break the old structure down to build a new one.
And our schedules keep us rigid, calcified.
Exactly. We just repeat the same loop. Stopping breaks the loop.
So if we bring this out of the abstract and into the listener's actual life, what are we saying? We're not telling you to throw away your calendar and miss your dental appointment.
Of course not. We live in a society that runs on chronos. We can't escape the grid entirely, and we shouldn't try. Civilization relies on coordination. But we can choose to step off the grid. We can create these little sanctuaries in time.
Like a digital Sabbath or something?
Sure, or even just 20 minutes, where the explicit goal is to achieve nothing. No podcasts, no books, no meditation apps, because even those can be a trap.
How so?
I am meditating to become better. That's still a form of productivity. You're still measuring.
Right, competitive relaxing.
Exactly. The challenge is to just sit. Watch the dust motes float in the sun. Let the boredom wash over you. Let the DMN scream for a minute and then watch it settle. Test the hypothesis. See if you disappear.
You know, it's a rebellion. In a world that demands 247 engagement, doing truly nothing is maybe the most radical act there is.
It's the ultimate reclamation of ownership. When you measure time, you're often measuring it for someone else, your boss, the market, the algorithm.
Yeah.
When you stop measuring, the time becomes yours again. Or rather, it stops being time and it just starts being life.
I think that's the distinction I'm going to carry with me from this. We spend so much energy trying to save time or manage time as if it's a commodity we can hoard.
But you can't hoard it. You can only spend it. The real question is, are you spending it just maintaining the schedule, or are you spending it actually experiencing the moment?
So, to recap this whole journey, we went from the Industrial Revolution and railroad schedules to the neuroscience of the default mode network, all the way to the philosophical edge of ego death. That's a lot to unpack from one paragraph.
It just proves the power of the source text. A good question is worth 100 answers.
As we wrap this up, I want to leave everyone listening with that final provocation. We usually end with a neat summary, but today I think we need to end with a challenge.
I have one thought to close on, if that works. It connects everything we've talked about. The anxiety, the measuring, the fear of stopping.
Go for it.
We all constantly feel like we are running out of time. That's the defining neurosis of the modern age. But if you accept the premise of this text, just for a moment, that time disappears when we stop measuring it, then maybe we've diagnosed the problem all wrong.
How so?
You aren't running out of time, you are running out of presence.
You aren't running out of time. You are running out of presence.
The clock is going to keep ticking. That's just mechanics. But your ability to be in the moment, that's what is actually scarce. That's the resource you need to protect.
That hits home. The solution isn't a better planner, it's having the courage to put the planner down.
Precisely.
Well, on that note, we are going to sign off. We really hope this conversation gives you permission to just stop, even for a few minutes today. Let that question linger. Don't rush to find an answer.
Enjoy the silence.
See you next time on The Deep Dive. Take care.